Social Studies, Chapter 17, Saratoga. Britain's master plan. American spirits wouldn't stay high for very long, not if the British could help it. In fact, British generals had a plan to knock the Americans out of the war before the year was over. The Hudson River Valley was an important part of Britain's plan for victory. The Hudson River runs north and south in New York State. The British aimed to win control of the entire Hudson River Valley. If the British controlled the Hudson, they could cut off New England from the other states, dividing the Americans into two. The British would then be able to defeat the rebels one part at a time. They would defeat New England first, then the rest of the states. That summer, General John Burgoyne led a large British army southward from Canada into New York State. The plan was for the main British army in New York City to start moving north soon after Burgoyne entered New York State. At about the same time, a third, smaller British force in western New York State would move east. The three British armies would meet near Albany on the Hudson River. At that point, it would be all over for the upstart Americans. That never happened. General William Howe was in charge of the main British army in New York. Howe wanted to capture Philadelphia first before moving north along the Hudson. Philadelphia was America's largest city. It was the meeting place of the Continental Congress. What a blow to American spirits if the British were to take it. Howe was sure he could capture Philadelphia and still have time to meet Burgoyne. He was wrong. By the time he captured Philadelphia, there was no time left to get back to New York. Howe didn't even try. Meanwhile, the third British force, the one moving eastward across New York State, ran into the Continental Army soldiers along the way. The British force, which included a large number of Native American allies, never made it to Albany either. That left Burgoyne and his army alone, moving south in New York State. The only ones there to meet him were General Gates and thousands of soldiers of the Continental Army. In October 1777, the British and Americans fought at Saratoga, north of Albany. The Americans won. 6,000 of Great Britain's best soldiers surrendered. New allies. The victory at Saratoga was a great turning point of the war. Not just because it was a great victory, but also because it brought the Americans a new ally, France. Remember how the French and English had been fighting for 100 years? Remember how the French lost all their North American colonies to Great Britain in the French and Indian War? Well, ever since, they had been burning for revenge. One way for France to get revenge on Great Britain was to help the American colonies break away. Soon after the colonies declared their independence, France secretly started sending them money and supplies. The money and supplies helped, but the Americans hoped for more. They wanted France to jump into the war with both feet. Every time they asked the French to join in the fight, however, they got the same answer. France would not enter the war unless the Americans proved that they had a real chance of defeating the British. The victory at Saratoga showed France that America could win. Several months after the Battle of Saratoga, the French entered the war on the side of the Americans. France sent money, equipment, and soldiers. Most importantly, France also sent a large naval fleet to help the Americans. It's quite possible that without help from the French, the Americans would not have won the war. Eventually, Spain and the Netherlands also declared war against the British. This turn of events happened because three British armies failed to meet as planned in Albany.